All right, welcome. Today we're going to pull back the curtain on something that's, well, kind of invisible, but absolutely critical to how companies run. We're talking about the secret systems that stop them from descending into total chaos. We're talking about internal control. So, to get our heads around this, let's play detective for a minute. Just picture a company's sales department, right? It's buzzing. Orders are flying in, products are shipping out. I mean, on the surface, everything looks great. But what's really going on under the hood? Without the right checks and balances in place, that whole process can just completely fall apart. I mean, you could have the company booking sales to customers that don't even exist. Or they could be double billing their real customers. Or maybe they're recording revenue for stuff that hasn't even left the warehouse yet. All of a sudden, their financial records aren't fact anymore, they're fiction. And that can lead to some seriously disastrous consequences, not just for the company, but for anyone who invested in it. So, the big question is, how do companies stop this chaos before it starts? How do they make sure the numbers are real and the business is actually running smoothly? Well, they build a kind of safety net. You can think of it as an internal security system, and the official name for this whole shebang is internal control. Okay, let's really dig into what that means. According to the COSO framework, which is pretty much the gold standard for this stuff, internal control is a process set up by the people at the very top, management and the board. But here's what's super interesting. Look at the goals here. It's not just about getting the financial reports right. It's also about making sure the whole operation is effective and efficient, and, this is a big one, that they're actually following the law. Honestly, the best way to think about all of this is to imagine building a fortress. This isn't just a single wall, okay? It's a whole defense system designed from the ground up to protect the company's money, its reputation, its very integrity, really. And this fortress, it's built on 5 absolutely essential pillars. First, you've got the control environment. That's the foundation, the culture and the ethical tone that management sets. Then there's risk assessment. That's like sending out scouts to find the weak spots in your defenses. Control activities. Those are your guards on the wall. Think approvals, reconciliations, the actual hands-on stuff. Information and communication. That's your network of signal fires and messengers, making sure everyone knows what's going on. And finally, you've got monitoring. That's the watchtower, keeping an eye on everything to make sure the defenses are actually holding up. Okay, so the fortress is built. Now imagine an independent auditor shows up. Their job is to figure out if the company's financial reports are legit. They walk up to this fortress of internal controls, and they have to make a huge decision, a choice that's going to define their entire game plan. Basically, they have 2 paths they can take. On one hand, you've got the substantive strategy. This is the trust no one approach. The auditor just assumes the fortress walls are weak, so they set the risk as high. And what does that mean? It means they're going to check every single stone. We're talking tons of detailed testing of every transaction. Then there's the other path, the reliance strategy. Here, the auditor looks at the fortress and thinks, okay, this looks pretty solid. They actually plan to rely on those defenses. So instead of checking every stone, they just test the controls themselves. Are the guards awake? Are the walls strong? If the answer is yes, they can get away with a lot less of that nitty-gritty transaction testing. And this table just lays that choice out perfectly. See that inverse relationship? It's so important. If an auditor thinks the company's controls are weak, so control risk is high, they can't afford to miss a thing. That means their own detection risk has to be low, which translates to a mountain of work. But if they look at the controls and think they're strong, control risk is low, they can live with a higher chance of not detecting something themselves, which means their workload can be way more limited and efficient. It's a total trade-off. But what happens if the auditor chooses that reliance path? They decide to trust the system, they start testing the controls, and they find that the fortress isn't quite as strong as it looked from the outside. What happens when they start finding cracks in the walls? And this is a really crucial point. No system is ever perfect. You can have the best designed fortress in the world, and it can still have vulnerabilities. For instance, a powerful executive could just order the guards to look the other way. That's called management override. Or someone could just make an honest mistake. That's simple human error. Or, and this is the really dangerous one, you could have 2 or more people inside the walls working together to cheat the system. That's collusion. And listen, this isn't just some textbook theory. When you look at studies of actual fraud cases, you see the same patterns over and over again. The biggest problems are often the most basic ones. Either a company just had a complete lack of controls in a key area, or just like we said, management decided to ignore or override the controls that were already there.
So when auditors find these cracks, they have to raise the alarm. But how loud they shout really depends on the size of the crack. A control deficiency is like finding a loose stone. No big deal, but you should fix it. A significant deficiency, though, that's a bigger problem. They have to report that one up the chain to the board of directors. But a material weakness? Whoa, that's a gaping hole in the wall. That's a problem so serious, there's a real possibility a huge error could slip through completely undetected.
Which brings us all the way back to the beginning, and to the most important takeaway of all. Remember that official definition? The keywords are right there: reasonable assurance. The goal of internal control isn't to build a 100% absolutely perfect, foolproof system, because frankly, that's impossible. The goal is to build a strong, reliable system that gives everyone, management, investors, auditors, reasonable confidence that things are on the right track.
And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? We've just walked through how these huge companies build these complex fortresses to manage their risks, but the basic ideas, spotting risks, putting in some checks, and then keeping an eye on them, that applies to everything. So think about your own work for a second, or even your own projects. Every system has a weakness. What's the most overlooked risk where you are?